obviously you're going to try and take your fitted wardrobe away with you.
Sorry.
어디다 나타났니 어떻게 찾아냈지 신기해 미스테리 같아 동네방네 소리치며
Which was why it was confusing. Oh.
어디다 나타났니 어떻게 찾아냈지 신기해 미스테리 같아 동네방네 소리치며 자랑하고 싶어 미치겠어 잃어버린 퍼즐을 찾은 것 같아 마음이 참 좋아 그 누구보다도 나겐 유일한 걸 믿어도 돼 가보자고 회사 나는 준비돼서 Make up like 우리 의지해 어떤 파도 쳐도 어떤 대류에 부딪혀도 함께해 가보자고 가보자고 라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라라 무한중력의 힘 너와 꼭 닮았어 어리가 나 귀여운 것 그런 것과는 완전 별개인 걸 참 소중해 오랜 시간을 견뎌 멀리 돌아온 만큼 너를 모르겠다면 너와 우린 어때 믿어보자 시작해 곡해서 나는 준비돼서 Make up mind 우리 의지해 멈춰 고민해도 뒤처질 않아도 앞으로 함께해 가보자고 꼭 붙잡고 꼭 해서 한눈에 알 수 있도록 간직해 수수함을 알아 그래 세상을 끌어당길 너니까 Go, go, make up your mind 믿을 거야 곡해서 나는 준비돼서 Make up mind 우리 의지해 어떤 파도 쳐도 어떤 대류에 부딪혀도 함께해 가보자고 꼭 붙잡고 꼭 해서
Good evening, and we apologise for the mess I made at the beginning of the stream where I couldn't work out which button I was meant to be pressing, and then just to make life extra bad discovered that if you accidentally drag things around in OBS, the buttons aren't where they were meant to be either. So yes, when I was selecting the button that was in the right place, it was not the correct button. Anyway, that obviously bodes well for my attempts at wiring up the signalling system that I built on Friday. Because on Friday, we assembled all of the necessary parts for having block signalling around the 2 loops of underwater minecart track. That is 5 signals on each loop, each signal consisting of a pair of counter-rotating rollers with the backwards roller able to be disconnected by a gear assembly, and then a pressure plate that acts as the sensor to see whether there's the minecart has entered the next section, and thus left the previous block. And so we've constructed 10 signals and 10 new SR flip-flops, that can be used to remember whether a minecart is in each section of track, and 20 new levers to allow us to override those settings. And now all we need to do is wire it all up. I counted last time that we were going to need a total of 170 mechanisms for this purpose. I think we've used 60 of them. So I think we still have 110 mechanisms to use in order to connect all of this up, which is slightly scary. We appear to have about 10 in stock at the moment. So I'm going to unpause, mostly to allow the dwarves to build more mechanisms. We also had a disastrous trading experience where we apparently somehow accidentally annoyed the traders so much they ran away, possibly because 2 trade caravans tried to arrive at the same time. Well, we haven't, Seb says, and a whole new fortress to put these extra controls in. Well, I'm just putting the levers outside because, well, they mostly shouldn't be used. Now, there is a problem. The problem is that, having thought more about this, I think some things about this are not going to work. In particular, this design of flip-flop, if you activate both the set and reset signals simultaneously, unpause, what happens is that you open the inward flow of water, the square with the pressure plate fills up to 7/7, as does the square with the reset door on it. And then if you release the set signal, it will stay set, and even though the reset signal is asserted, because both of these squares will be full. And it's only when you release reset and reapply it and then release it again. Is that correct? No, when you release reset and reapply it, that the flip-flop will actually clear. And this might be a problem because if a pressure plate has a delay before deactivating. It will activate the moment that a minecart touches it, runs over it, but it will deactivate 100 ticks later than 100 ticks after. Who are you fighting? You've fallen off something. It will deactivate 100 ticks after the minecart leaves it. And if then the minecart reaches the next pressure plate before those 100 ticks have expired, we'll end up trying to both fill and empty the flip-flop that represents the track segment it's just passed through far too quickly. Now, I haven't actually done the sums, and I really should make a spreadsheet for this purpose, but I think it is possible that the distance between, say, these two pressure plates and possibly these two pressure plates is enough that the minecarts won't pass through too quickly. It is obviously impossible that a minecart will be able to spend 100 ticks getting from here to here after it's just descended that ramp from the starting point. So if my understanding of how all this will work is correct, it won't work properly. I can see several ways to fix this. The first one I did was to try to reinvent approach locking. Hang on, just reorganising IRC so that people who are blithering about spreadsheets can do so somewhere where I can see them. So, Dizzyet asks, do your minecarts have to phone up the signaller if they get stuck at a signal? They don't. There are no phones, but they would. Yes, probably need. I would need to intervene by getting someone to pull the lever to drain the section that they're waiting to enter. As Pinkbees points out, they can't phone because no one can get out of the minecart because it doesn't actually stop at a signal. It bounces back and forth at the signal. Because if it stopped, then everyone would. Then the dwarf on the minecart would get off it, which would kind of spoil the point. And indeed, dwarves would then go, oh, that minecart has broken down, I must take it home. Or rather, take it back to the next stop. So, my first idea was approach locking, whereby we keep a signal at red until the entrance pressure plate to the block that it's in resets. And that wouldn't be too hard. That's essentially an OR gate, so an extra gear assembly and a power supply for it, and hook that up to the input pressure plate, and well, you're probably the entry pressure plate, and you're probably going to have to invert that that gear assembly because they're always the wrong way round. Another possibility for these longish sections, if those turn out to be slightly too short, is we just slow the rollers down a bit. We demolish the rollers and build slightly slower ones in their place. Another approach, and I think this is the better one for the very short sections, is not to use fluid flip-flops, because the wiki has another design of flip-flop which runs on minecarts. And that one, I think, has the feature that if you assert both of its inputs at once, then it will settle in the state corresponding to whichever one is released last, which is precisely what we want. It's not perfectly reliable because it actually relies on minecarts bouncing back and forth. So if they're released very close to the same time, there might be a problem. But I think that might work for these short sections. If it doesn't, the approach locking approach will definitely work. But on the other hand, there's now a question of, do I try to implement all of this, or do I go on knowing that it will probably not work in order to prove that it doesn't work? And since I'm trying to write all of this up for a wiki page on the Dwarf Fortress wiki, I can't just assert if you do this it won't work without actually testing whether it doesn't work, can I? So Dizzy says, I heard you liked minecarts, so I controlled your minecarts with minecarts. Yes. So the reason I the reason why I didn't go for minecart flip-flops from the start is that they are quite... Hang on, what do I want to say? They are much more complicated to build than fluid flip-flops. In that they need a power supply in order to run the minecarts, and you have to insert two minecarts, and like there's gear assemblies, and it's all complicated. Whereas the fluid flip-flops just require a source of pressurized water. It's paused again. So, what do we want to do? We want to... One thing I want to do is to remove that floor grate, if we can, and then can we actually get down that ramp? I think in the current layout we can't. Let's also do a bit of digging around there to make it practical to get down that ramp. Because I think I would like to get this tunnel connected up if I've got the time, which I have. Because if we do that, then draining the flip-flops as necessary should be quicker. There was some other reason, I'm sure, as well, but... right, so there was the one thing we definitely want to do if we're even keeping some of this, was to hook up this, it's paused again, this lever to Forgotten Beast. That's the new Forgotten Beast, isn't it? Oh no, I think that's the old Forgotten Beast. Yes, that's the beakless pigeon, which has apparently managed to get quite badly wounded.
I'm still concerned about the fact that it's spherical, has a shell, and doesn't
have a beak. In what way does that lead for it to be a pigeon? And not, for instance, a snail. I mean, it also somehow manages to be emaciated. It's got feathers. Yes, it's got feathers. What's its fighting looking like? Okay, it may technically be injecting poison into the troglodyte, but it's also like beating the troglodyte up quite vigorously. Possibly the troglodyte has just fallen a very long way. Anyway, it's not our problem. So, yes, the first thing we need to do is to hook up this lever to every one of the signals, pull the lever once and then just demolish it again. But that means that we need to get about 20, since there are 10 signals, we need to get about 20 mechanisms up here. I mean, in theory, we could do this a bit at a time, but we're going to need those mechanisms anyway. Okay, there really isn't very much lying around in there. I think most of whatever stuff. Okay, I think that's a pile of food left behind by the merchants when they left rather quickly. Let us unforbid that. I'm sure we can make use of artichoke hearts and strawberries and such like, and similarly that lot. Red spinach is a hoax substance that's supposed to be used by Popeye the Sailor Man for terrorism purposes. Right, that's 12 mechanisms have arrived. Why are we not getting any rock mechanisms coming up here? What's going on with the rock mechanism production? Look, there's a validated work order for 100 rock mechanisms here. Why is that not being scheduled? It doesn't have any conditions or anything, does it? If it does, we should obviously turn them off. That's completely the wrong button. Let's try that one. No, it's not conditional. So why is it not like activating? Is there something stupid about this workshop? Does it have a link? It has a link to the stone stockpile, but there's... Oh, the stone stockpile. We're out of stone, right. Or at least there is no stone in the stone stockpile. Just wondering where we should dig in order to make more, in order to get more stone. We could like try to provide additional bedrooms of a sort. Just wondering where would be a good place to dig them out. Let's just fill in. Let's see, so that this area should be reasonably safe, if kind of slightly inconvenient. Oh, here's our new mechanics. Is this? No, they're all still doctors. So I'm just going to dig some things that might turn out to be useful bedrooms. Unless is there some, no, but I was going to go, is there some useful thing we could be digging up? I suppose we could try to dig around in places where we might find, let's just do it here, I don't care. Where we might find gems, but oops. That'll get me a bit more stone, and then maybe we can make some more stone mechanisms. I think that's somewhere where it won't flood if we do some digging. Right, so now we can also, let's make this slightly, no, actually let's not make this higher priority because we really do want that stone. Possibly there is a problem with having asked for the digging to happen so deep. It's not that deep, really.
Too deep and woke the ancient pigeon. Except, spoiler, the pigeon was already awake.
Yes. Dwarves are still bringing mechanisms up, so. And apparently occasionally getting confused by wheelbarrows. What's that? No, that's not a dead thing. That's an anvil, which someone has for some reason left in the barracks. Don't need a buzzard corpse. Get rid of the buzzard corpse. Right, we've got almost enough mechanisms for our purpose, for our initial purpose. Oh right, it is still damp down here. Okay, no, we don't want to be digging somewhere damp. There's not much stone at this layer.
Digging somewhere damp is one of the anti-climax version of Lord of the Rings. Too deep they delved and got their socks soggy.
Well, I mean, that is one of our problems here. Right, we're just going to dig out some siltstone from somewhere vaguely convenient. Because, frankly, I am not going to try to carefully work around water. Sadly, my one active miner is now trekking all the way back up here to do this little bit of digging, which is like a bit of digging we want done, but Right, there should be a couple more. Mechanisms arriving soon. Here's one. And here's another. Right, so let's now, that's the required 20 mechanisms. So now what we want to do is to take the initialize lever, I'd forgotten I'd called it initialize, and link it to that gear assembly. Can we schedule 10 jobs on this? And that gear assembly. And let's do them in order around each line. That gear assembly. And that gear assembly. And that gear assembly. And that gear assembly. That one. That one. And I think we've now run out of space, so the last gear assembly on each loop still has to be connected up. I hope those jobs don't get cancelled, because it's going to be very confusing if they do. I mean, not nearly as confusing as once we try to do the proper wiring, but... So while that's getting connected up, I might actually want to start connecting up other things. Because otherwise we're going to be waiting for all that set of serialized connection jobs to complete. And that will take a while. So the next things we'll want to do are the reset connections to each of the flip-flops, I think. So what that means is that we want the exit signal from each block to be connected up to the empty door for the corresponding flip-flop. So the first block here is block N1. That's its entry pressure plate. That's its exit pressure plate. So we want to link that to N1 empty. So that's N2 signal, which means that that's the N2 exit, which means we want to link that to N2 empty. So then that's the N3 signal, which means that's N3 exit, which means we want to link that pressure plate to N3 empty. That's the N3 signal. No, that's the N4 signal, which means that that's N4 exit, which means we want to link that to N4 empty. And finally, that is the N5 signal, which means that that is N5 exit, which we should name N1 detect. I am thinking actually it should be, oh well, N1 detect, let's be consistent, though it's also N5 exit, which means that that should be linked to N5 empty. Apparently we already had enough mechanisms for that. So I wonder if we've got enough to go around the others. So the signal at the top of here is S1, which means that that is S1 entry and that is S1 exit. So that wants to be connected to S1 empty. That signal is S2, which means that that is S2 exit, which means that gets linked to S2 empty. That signal is S3, which means that that is S3 exit, which means that that should be linked to S3 empty. That signal is S4, which means that that is S4 exit, which means that that should be linked to S4 empty. That signal is S5, which means that that is S5 exit, otherwise known as S1 detect. And so that wants to be linked to S5 empty. Right, so that's scheduled, linking everything up to the emptying parts of the flip-flops. Those doors we never have to go through, so it's quite safe to get them under control first. Indeed, those we have to do before we do the set doors, because the set doors are once they're under control, it will get much more awkward to wire everything up. So I think the next thing should be to see how the initialize lever is coming along. That now has two remaining slots. So I started I did those in order. I did N1, S1, N2, S2, N3, S3, and so forth. So I think it just needs to be linked up to N5 and S5 now. Cannot link to a windmill. So if I, right, yes, and that, notably we can't link it to everything because, oh, we've struck lace agate, excellent. Struck tiger iron, though that one we are going to just mine out anyway because it's in the way. You can see dwarves busying themselves carrying mechanisms around. I think they're quite heavy mechanisms, but they will get it done eventually. So we have scheduled the wiring up of the initialize lever and all of the exit pressure plates. So we also need the reset levers to be wired up. So that's lever N5 empty, and it should be that should thus be connected to building to door N5 empty. N4 empty, which I will gratuitously rename to have a proper capital letter. Should then be linked up to the door labelled N4 empty. Lever N3 empty should be linked to the door labelled N3 empty. Lever N2 empty should be linked to the door labelled N2 empty. Lever N1 empty should be linked to the door labelled N1 empty. S1 empty should be linked to the door labelled S1 empty. S2 empty should be linked to the door labelled S2 empty. S3 empty should be linked to the door labelled S3 empty. S4 empty should be linked. Right, we've run out of mechanisms. So S4 and S5 empty are still waiting to be connected up. Justin says, this is the Begat episode of Dwarf Fortress, isn't it? A bit, yes. This is, I've worked out all the wiring already. Indeed, noted it in-game. And now we just have to put all the wires into place. Right, we've got production of siltstone mechanisms going though, so that means we should be getting mechanisms at twice the rate we were before. If we can transport them up here fast enough. Maybe I need a railway line to move mechanisms around. S4 empty should be connected to the door labelled S4 empty. S5 empty still can't be linked. Oh, someone has claimed it's a stoneworker's workshop. Let's just check that they're not demanding things. Oh, Das dot Nania Medtob sketches skeletons and shining bars of metal and rough gems and a forest and a quarry and stacked leather and stacked cloth. Well, none of those should be hard to find.
An entire forest.
Well, okay, we've kind of felled quite a bit of it. Right, so you have here, as presumably the ingredients, so far, siltstone, mountain goat leather, and rope reed cloth. Quarry, siltstone, stacked leather, mountain goat leather, stacked cloth, rope reed cloth. So you're short of skeletons. Oh, we've probably... I'm slightly surprised, but we're probably in a situation where our attempts at keeping an adequate quantity of bones don't work properly because there are so many bones, like, in surprising places that we can't use. Okay, well, let's pick an injured animal that needs that clearly needs slaughtering and slaughter it. Why isn't there a slaughter button here? We have to do this by some complicated route that involves going through the list of animals, at which point I'm going to forget which one I was planning to slaughter. Not that it matters very much. We could just slaughter the oldest. Let's just slaughter the oldest horse, or at least longest standing horse, as it were. That should then get us a stock of bones. Need more mechanisms, mine more mechanisms. I think the mechanisms may be being made by inexperienced mechanics now. No, it doesn't mean they get their quantum entanglement. I can get their quantum entanglements in a tangle. It just means that they're quite slow at making mechanisms. That one is still busy. Once that's finished, I pull that lever once and then I can demolish it and get 11 mechanisms back out. Aha, right, we have enough mechanisms to link up S5 empty at least. Right. Right, the stray horse has been slaughtered, which should have spat out a pile of bones, and indeed here is a doctor who has picked up 14 stray horse bones for the purposes of whatever it is he's trying to accomplish. Claire says 10 out of how many? You mean mechanisms? We need, as I said, we need about 170, but I think those 10 are included in those 170, as in we actually only need 160 mechanisms. But I could be wrong. No, sorry, those 10 aren't included. We needed 180 peak, but we don't actually use them all at once. Jurton says, all your dwarves were expert surgeons. Now you're training them to be mechanics. I think you're breeding the Borg. It's possible. Right, so reinstate that nearby. Great. Because now this tunnel has been dug out, and while I can't quite remember why I wanted it, it's done, so possibly we should have found a lighter metal to make mechanisms out of. Though, like, aluminium is very rare. Maybe we need some kind of lightweight rock. So we now have everything scheduled for connecting up to all of these doors. Though, for instance, that one only has one of the two things connected to it. I think there are a lot of jobs to do, and so the actual connection, because my guys are pretty good. Right, he's begun his mysterious construction. Let's see if there's anything here that we can throw away. We don't want stray horse nervous tissue or cartilage. Still some siltstone down there. Let's mark a bit more for mining. Because we're clearly going to need more. Actually, I can use this to keep a rough eye on how many link building jobs are still pending. Not very many. We can start on the next batch soon, I think I'd like to get the initialize lever finished before I start hooking anything else up to the gear assemblies, because that will minimise confusion. But like, there's only 3 more things to link up to the initialize lever. Yes, one thing I'm thinking maybe I should start doing is, since we have more population than is sensible for the power of my computer, possibly we should send some of the less happy dwarves to other fortresses. So apparently we can't do that with children. Though admittedly that child's about to grow up. Yes, so we have that button which we can press to send them to one of our subsidiary sites, which might be, I mean, admittedly it would take quite a lot of expulsions to get us down to the point of increasing the frame rate. Thank you, Diziot, who has invented the concept of mock mechanism. Still 3 things to link to initialize. Well, obviously we don't want to send the mechanics away. Actually, I think a lot of dwarves are required for such things as lugging siltstone up from the mines in order to turn more of it into mechanisms. Right, there's someone linking up another mechanism into that. There's now 2 things left to link to the initialize lever. Still plenty of other linking jobs to do. I'm wondering if I should assign more people to the mechanics labour, even though they won't be very good at it yet. We've already got quite a few. I don't think I want to put any more on that. We could pick one more maybe. Go on. That make totem was us consuming the skull of the horse. Let's see how we're off for wood. Got some left. I might schedule the cutting of a few more trees. Das dot Namiamed Tob, the doctor, has created Erdad Imketh, a siltstone mini forge. She claims it as an heirloom in the name of the family ancestor Sarvesh, frenzy clasped. Okay. Odad Imketh, otherwise known, as the Feast of Justice. This is a siltstone mini forge. All craft dwarfship is of the highest quality. It is encrusted with oval siltstone cabochons, cushion-laced lace agate cabochons and marquise cut tiger irons, decorated with horsebone and encircled with bands of rope reed and alder. The object menaces with spikes of mountain goat leather. It's presumably soft for safe use by children. On the item is an image of dwarves in iron. The dwarves are labouring. The artwork relates to the foundation of shoot test by the Treaty of Caves of the Orbs of Yore in the early spring of 100. So yes, a mini forge, a toy for children, which has 3 different kinds of gem on it and is menaces with spikes of mountain goat leather. Also, it's apparently winter. Seb says, this is like kids' toys being 3 different types of very colourful plastic. Yes. Come on, finish linking this up so I can pull the lever and then start linking more things up. Alternatively, why are all of those suspended? That would explain why they're not happening. Right, I'll unsuspend them all. It's not all of the empty levers. The 3s have apparently been correctly linked up. So now we should look for why they get suspended again, because that would explain why nothing was happening. I mean, apart from the initialize lever being linked up, which is slowly happening, I'm sure. Who's linking up the initialize lever and where the hell are they? Right, they are actually somewhere useful. Oh, cancelled link building to trigger, could not find path. Those doors are all still ordinary and passable. Have I accidentally made it impossible to get into the... Oh, I think you can perfectly well get down there. Assuming that's unlocked, but it surely is. Yes. All of these doors are passable still. You're linking them to these levers, which are definitely accessible. Well, I mean, just to be on the safe side...
I'm a bit suspicious when people say they can't get there. About 4 a bit years ago, I ordered something that was due to be delivered on a particular day, and eventually found on a tracking website that it said delivery area was not accessible. I had been looking out of the window waiting for the delivery person.
No.
After some time, I decided that the way in which the delivery driver was unable to access the delivery area was that they looked at their watch and discovered it was home time.
Right, so yes, let's build a staircase down into there and see if that makes it more accessible. I mean, as far as I can tell, that ramp should be usable by going north or south, both of which are perfectly passable. Grumpy child punching rabbit. Actually, let's make that high priority stairs, because like that's stopping anything else happening at the moment. Assuming we have any miners who want to do any mining. Which is possible we don't. Oh right, yes we do, but they might be trying to do it from the wrong end, like the end that everyone has been complaining they can't get to. Okay, now you're fighting a pig.
But at least this combat log involves actual combat.
It's true.
Not like someone fell out of a tree or got run over by a minecart, or you don't even know what, because the first message says that someone absorbed the blow, and you feel it shouldn't be using a definite article if it's not going to tell you what blow from who.
See, this dwarf has quite happily accessed both the top and bottom of that staircase. So it's just by walking up and down this ramp. So it's perfectly feasible. Why are you giving me could not find path messages? Possibly you couldn't find a path to the mechanism? But surely all the relevant mechanisms are up here. Actually, we could just schedule a pull lever job immediately after this, but let's not do that because I want to actually watch the lever being pulled.
Through the switch you got.
Yes. And also things like count the number of mechanisms. This is the equivalent of a wire count in a real signalling system. Could not find path. Also, Snatcher, protect the children. Well, let's summon the squads that are already in training. Up here somewhere, though, actually we'll send the Waters of Twinkling further forward. What are you guys doing? Probably collecting food. Livestock flee in all directions. That was a goblin falling into the sea, wasn't it? Yes. Excellent. Well, I mean, dodging an incoming blow and doing so in a way that involved falling into the sea.
Yes, but I mean, normally the sea is fairly. I mean, on any normal beach, it's quite hard to.
This isn't.
You have to wade a long way out before the sea becomes dangerously deep.
Well, First Dwarf Fortress only has rather low resolution in the Z direction. While water has 7 different depths, land can only be there or not there.
Yes,
So it's not very slopey. It's a like 3 metre high cliff. And also, actually, our coast has cliffs along most of it, as in the water is 2 Z levels deep along most of the edges. So you really do go quite a long way down, as this unfortunate drowning dwarf has. They're not just, they're now a Z level below the surface of the water, not just under it. I think this is the goblin who fell into the sea. In the midst of conflict. Ah, no!
Keskalokil.
That being a rather more conventional way of dealing with a goblin thief.
There we go. Mace Dwarf punches a goblin thief. Because they've forgotten their job title.
The Axe Dwarf understands the assignment, though. Right, are there any more goblin thieves around? Oh yes, one of them's still busy drowning. That's a sea otter, so it's just swimming. Well, I mean, technically, it's kind of drowning in that it's going to have to surface at some point. But I think it can survive being underwater for quite some time.
I think it doesn't count as drowning if you're holding your breath.
Yes.
It doesn't have every expectation of coming back to the surface before you need to breathe again.
So I think we now just need to say, kill that one remaining goblin thief. These jobs are just repeatedly cancelling. Apart from N3 and S3, which have successfully been linked. That's very odd.
They keep tripping over the cable.
Possibly. Oh no, suspended a link from initialize because they were interrupted by a goblin thief. Yes, that's not unexpected. Unsuspend. Goblin thief will not be lasting much longer. There we go. Dead goblin thief. Yeah, that was a fairly effective disposal of a goblin thief. Reclaim all of the goblin thief's stuff. Someone needs to finish off linking that up. And then, yeah, what's going on with these then? Let's cancel that. And then redo it. I think this is someone linking up the initialize lever. See what else we can dispose of. Right, so there are now no tasks for linking that up, and it has one copper mechanism, which is the lever itself, and then wired up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 copper mechanisms. Wire count there is correct. Then each of the gear assemblies should have one additional mechanism in it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, so now let's pull this lever. When this lever is set to the right, we want to demolish it. Meanwhile, I shall see if I can find another dead goblin to recycle. One of them's in the sea, of course. There's probably another one around somewhere. The king has forgotten his demand for an iron bed. Was it an iron bed? No, an iron something more sensible than a bed.
You've forgotten it too.
Yes. Right, the lever has been pulled. So that should now mean that all of the gear assemblies are disconnected, and we can see they're now not alternating between sun and asterisk, which is the state we want them in. So then that can be demolished. And that one has ended up suspended again. Why are you unable to find path? I don't understand. Like, it involves walking from here, down those stairs, along here, through a door that's passable, over a pressure plate that won't detect you, and to a door. Oh. No.
You might want to, I don't know, go into temporary adventure mode.
And try it.
Yes.
There is the thing.
Let me go plop, 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 oh, clang.
There is the thing that in order to link up a lever to a door, you do have to stand on the doorway. And of course, the doors now can't be opened by dwarves because they are operated by mechanisms, allegedly. Except that they probably aren't. Oh, right. I know what the answer is. What a nuisance. The answer is they are operated by mechanisms because I, in parallel, connected them to the levers and the pressure plates. And some of them, the lever got there first, and probably the pressure plate job is then suspended. And some of the places the pressure plate got there first and the lever job is thus suspended. Now, the ones where the lever got there first, I can probably pull the lever to open the door and then connect them up. The ones where the pressure plate got there first, I could only do this by placing a minecart on the pressure plate. Right, That's fine. We can place minecarts on pressure plates. Actually, we should check. So it was 3 in each case that was already connected up. So let's go to S5. So that door there is one that we want that is not yet connected. It's currently linked to S1 detect. That is S1 detect. So let's place a minecart. Let's make a stop that is S1 detect and place a minecart on it. And I think the N1 is going to be similar, so since we have a decent quantity of minecarts. Right, so now that door is open. So now if we find the S5 empty lever and unsuspend its linkage job, we should be okay.
Why's your strange mood coming along?
He made a siltstone mini forge.
Oh, I missed it. Fair enough.
It menaces with spikes of leather because, well, it's a toy. It's probably not meant to be dangerous. Well, not very dangerous anyway. It's covered in gems. While we're waiting for this, we should just keep adding more temporary minecart routes. At least until we run out of temporary minecarts. I appreciate that there are some of these that I don't need to put minecarts on, but I can't remember. It was it. Yeah, no, it won't be N3 detect, will it? May as well just add minecarts to everything. N4 and N5 empty. Don't seem to have one on N2 detect yet. Right, that's minecarts placed or scheduled to be placed on all of the remaining detectors. I think 2 of the doors will not open as a result, and those ones will need to be, because those ones managed to get connected to their levers and are probably not connected to the pressure plates. Since most of these are going to be connected up by now, are going to be in a position to be connected up, let's make sure that all the jobs are unsuspended. Another forgotten beast, Nidost, a huge eyeless newt. It has thin wings of stretched skin and it squirms and fidgets. Its amethyst skin, which I think is just the colour, not the material, is waxy. Beware its noxious secretions.
Well, we've got a pigeon with a shell, and now we've got a newt with wings. There we go.
Yes.
The police was hardly a sensible name for a band, of course. The. I wanted to know the was filed under the or the comma.
So,
I was thinking it should be filed under the abstract, but it's true.
yes, here is our new forgotten beast, which, like the pigeon, actually I can't remember if the pigeon, yes, I think the pigeon has wings too and can fly. Doesn't feel anything while in conflict. known as the Ferocious. Okay, and he's apparently just sitting on the wall of the... Oh, no, it's wandering around again. I mean, all of the...
I must say that I had not realised Forgotten Beasts were that young. I had the idea that they were like prehistoric.
Well, that is prehistoric. The world's only 100 years old. There are only 100 years of history. I mean, this is a slight problem you get when simulating the whole of history, is that it can't be very long, especially if your users might get bored. Oh dear, there's a rotting thing. Probably because we're not actually able to cook things fast enough. Basically, we have too much food in this place. And we did only really kill this horse for its bones. Okay, it looks like there's one pressure plate we aren't putting a minecart on. I should probably put a minecart on that pressure plate. On the other, oh yes, that one's suspended again, which is probably because of that minecart. That's weird because I've got 10 temporary routes, so what's the other one? What have I duplicated? I did them in a stupid order, of course. Oh, I've got 2 of them on N4 detect, right. I do quite like the feature of automatically naming the stop after the building it's on. Unpause, then things will happen. Even if most of the things that are happening are someone's bringing a minecart to put on this pressure plate. I mean, people are also busy wiring things up to the doors that I have successfully opened. So, now let's wait until we think everything's stable. I.e. until all of the jobs have been completed. That one we have to wait for the minecart to be delivered though. think we've removed all the rotting flesh. It's just right, one minecart delivered. So now we can unsuspend the one remaining task. So then, actually we can do the wire count from this side, can't we? Each of the pressure plates should have 2 mechanisms on it, in it. All of the north pressure plates have 2 mechanisms.
Good night.
Night. All of the south, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of the south pressure plates have 2 mechanisms. So if there are also so there is one remaining link job underway, and then we can check that all of the doors have 2 mechanisms and a door in them, because they should each be linked to 1 lever and 1 pressure plate. And assuming we've got that right, then I think we link up the fill door. Right, that's that job done. Then I think we link up the fill doors to their levers. So 1, 2 mechanisms in the first door, 2 mechanisms in the second door, 2 mechanisms in the third door, 2 mechanisms in N4 empty, 2 mechanisms in N5 empty, 2 mechanisms in S1 empty, 2 mechanisms in S2 empty, 2 mechanisms in S3 empty, 2 mechanisms in S4 empty, 2 mechanisms in S5 empty. Right, I think we've got all the empty doors hooked up correctly. So now let's hook up the fill doors. N5 fill, no, oh okay, N5 fill should be linked up to door N5 fill. N4 fill should be linked up to door N4 fill. N1 fill should be linked to door N1 fill. N2 fill should be linked to door N2 fill. N3 fill should be linked to door N3 fill. No, that's S1 empty. S1 fill should be linked to door S1 fill. Door lever S2 fill should be linked to door S2 fill. Lever S3 fill should be linked to door S3 fill. Lever S5 fill, careful Ben, should be linked to door S5 fill. Lever S4 fill should be linked to door S4 fill. We're going to need to remove these minecarts somehow. I mean, I think let's leave them there for now. Let's not confuse things too much, just in case we need those doors open. I mean, we can do it with the levers, but... So then we can also link up the... No, actually, we'll get these in place, then we'll pull the levers to open the doors, and then we'll do the next batch of things. Let's do this slightly carefully. Yeah, looks like we have removed all the rotting flesh. See, we have armies of mechanics carrying mechanisms, setting things up. Oh dear, a child has died, probably due to being hideously depressed, as they all are, well, as some of them are. Only 4 horribly depressed children now. I think we've still got enough places to bury people. Is that all of those? I can't see a link job still pending. It looks like those may be complete. Right. So let us now pull all of the fill levers to open the doors so that we can continue working on them. Right. So now we should link up, come on, S1 fill. Someone's coming to pull S1 fill. So now we can link up the fill doors to the entrance pressure plates, which is kind of simpler in that N1 detects a minecart entering N1, and so it should be linked to N1 fill. N2 detect should be linked to N2 fill. N3 detect should be linked to N3 fill. N4 detect should be linked to N4 fill. N5 detect should be linked to N5 fill. Unpause. S1 detect should be linked to S1 fill. S2 detect should be linked to S2 fill. S3 detect should be linked to S3 fill. S4 detect should be linked to S4 fill. And S5 detect should be linked to S5 fill. Right, and meanwhile we can link up, if we've got enough mechanisms, the signals. So that similarly is not very hard. We link N1 state to N1 signal. We link N2 state to N2 signal. We link N3 state, which is wrongly named, to N3 signal. We link N4 state to N4 signal. N5 state to N5 signal. S1 state to S1 signal. S2 state to S2 signal. S3 state to S3 signal. S4 state, which is misnamed. Why was that not working properly? S4 state. Why is clicking link plate not working? Have I run out of mechanisms and don't know it? We still have children are being stumbling around obliviously. Let's try linking up S5 state to S5 signal. Why can't I click link plate here? There's something weird going on. Everything else works. Just clicking link plate doesn't do anything. Maybe I need to demolish S4 state and rebuild it. I can demolish it at least. But let's demolish it and build a new one and see if it works any better. One problem might be that now because not all of those mechanisms have been moved up to the stockpile, some of the mechanics will have to disappear down into the depths of the fortress to collect their mechanisms, which will slow things down a bit, sadly. Right, so how are we going to get these minecarts out of the way? Possibly we just deassign them and hope that there's a stockpile that'll take them, and if there isn't, we create a minecart stockpile. I think that will do. We finished all of the wiring to those we did a wire count on all of them, didn't we? So that's all we need. Wait a little while and see if anyone picks up a minecart and takes it away. If not, I'm going to create a stockpile for them. I think we have a problem that we haven't got anywhere to store ingredients for cooking, because all of our ingredient stockpiles are full of ingredients for brewing. Right, so that mechanism has been dismantled. Now let's re-establish it. It's 5 to 7 trigger. Let's just check that. Yes, 5 to 7 is conventional. Needs mechanisms. Oh, is that mechanism scheduled to be moved to a... Right, stop that mechanism being moved to a stockpile. That does suggest we were actually very close to running out of mechanisms anyway. Right, no one seems to be moving the minecarts, so let's set up a temporary minecart stockpile up here. All being well, that will encourage people to remove the minecarts. Right, minecarts are being removed, which means that the emptying doors and some filling doors are getting into odd states. So S1 fill probably wants to be quickly triggered to reopen, which we can do by scheduling 2 pull lever jobs at it. Because of course those ones that are connected up to the fill doors will close the fill doors when they're removed, which is slightly unfortunate. N2 fill, and let's wait for all the minecarts to be picked up and for the pressure plates to de-trigger. Right, I think we just need to pull possibly, well, every fill door, probably twice. I mean, it's kind of safe to pull every fill door twice at this stage at least. And more generally it is because that just, at worst, will tell the system that there are minecarts where there aren't minecarts. Which is the safe way to fail. So that should then open all of the filling doors again. But it may be that most of these pressure plates are connected up now. Not all of them yet. Most of them though. So that one's not. That one should be named S4 state. And should be linked to... What's going on? So any other... Oh. No, okay, if I try to link anything at the moment, it doesn't happen. Maybe, what's going on with our production of mechanisms? We still have plenty scheduled. Okay, right there at least I get a need accessible mechanism. So I think we're just out of mechanisms. Right, that's not a serious problem. On the other hand, let's add slightly more copper ones. We probably don't actually need that many rock ones. Plus we probably don't have that much rock. Assuming we still have, like, copper. Oh no, we're out of copper. Right. I mean, we will get more copper by melting things down. What's our metal situation? I mean, we're fairly well off for Billen. There's basically no other metal that we have a surprisingly large amount of. I mean, we've got lots of platinum, but making platinum mechanisms would just be silly. Problem is that the only copper ore I've actually got, other than goblinite, is tetrahedrite, which I may as well turn into Billen. Yeah. Well, let's... And yes, we're out of rock again. Let's dig out that area so that we can connect up those two bits of the mines as well. Well, As a temporary measure, let's order 10 iron mechanisms. Because we are close to having all the connections in place. Actually, can we make mechanisms out of billet? Oh, we totally can, right. Since that's our major non-weapons grade metal at this stage. Don't know quite how well off we are for tetrahedrite, but let's mine a bit more just in case. Oh no, we have plenty of tetrahedrite. Maybe I don't need to bother. Well, apart from that gem cluster there, which obviously I do need to bother with. While it's accessible. No one seems to be actually doing any mining either, which is like leaving me a bit short of materials. And annoyingly, I can't manually schedule making metal mechanisms. Well, actually, we've got some spare mechanisms embedded in the old signalling test system. We could demolish that, but I like it. And like it's all connected up. No, I'm not going to demolish that. It may not be perfect at present, but I'm sure the manager will get around to something, or the miners will get around to doing some mining, or otherwise, one way or another, something interesting will happen. Actually, that doesn't want to be can use any shop, you're stoat. That one has to be scheduled down here. So everything has ground to a halt because we ran out of copper and stone simultaneously. And then the miners decided that they were on strike or something. I mean, people are at least melting things down still. Maybe we'll turn out to have a little bit of copper now, except that I've cancelled the copper job, so we can't just re-enable that one either. No one seems to be coming down to do any mining down here. Come along, you guys. We need like one more mechanism. Good, someone's doing a dig task at least, which will, in theory, eventually result in mechanisms by a kind of terribly roundabout route. I could just say gypsum or whatever is limonite is a non-economic stone, but that would be silly. Now you just need to find some stone, which weirdly is quite hard work. Oh, a second miner. This one is being very inefficient. Haven't found any stone yet. There's some. Right. Now someone will come down here with a wheelbarrow to collect that stone. And take it up to the stockpile next to the stone workshops, and in particular next to the mechanics shop upstairs. And then someone will make a mechanism from it. So admittedly, even that next step hasn't happened yet. Aha, here we come. Here's someone with a wheelbarrow. Let us watch them. Led Sigbrecht Linem pushing a wheelbarrow full of stone. Several other people coming down with wheelbarrows to collect more stone. Yes, if you have the wrong bedroom, people keep coming through your bedroom with a wheelbarrow full of siltstone. So, brought the siltstone up to the stone workshop. So now, all being well, we have a task in here to make rock mechanisms. which will be automatically activated. Actually, frankly, we can press that button ourselves in order to get it going a bit faster. Now, someone will have been scheduled for that job. So they have to come up from where they were hiding in the mines. There's a bit of a traffic jam in this corridor because everyone's bringing up new quantities of siltstone. But we can now haul the siltstone over to the workshop. And set to work making mechanisms, which should not take long for a legendary mechanic. Right. Now we might have a spare siltstone mechanisms there, which is now going to be hauled itself up from there. Someone will come down with a wheelbarrow in order to haul it up into the mechanism stockpile. Really, they will. We know they're going to because it's marked as having an active task associated with it. That task being just put it somewhere else. Oh, come on. There we are. They're actually just carrying it and not wheelbarrowing it, slightly to my surprise. But there's plenty of wheelbarrows in that thing. But actually, let's look at that quickly. A siltstone mechanism weighs 50 eurists, but I think copper mechanisms were more like 150. Anyway, so now I should be able to finally S4 state, currently connected to nothing, link plate to S4 signal. That's correct, yes. I was going, why did it already have a mechanism in? Because all of those have mechanisms in from when we connected up the initialize lever, which sadly we can't get those mechanisms out. That's 10 mechanisms that are basically useless now, but they were necessary to invert the state of all of those gears. So now an adept mechanic is linking up that last pressure plate. One mechanism gets installed into the gear assembly. One mechanism, this is a copper one though, you can see moving much slower, because a copper mechanism, yes, weighs about 3.5 times what a siltstone mechanism weighs. So that's certainly a reason for making your mechanisms out of stone if you can get yourself enough stone. I mean, yes, my problem here was that we don't have that much dull stone in the fortress. Right, and that is the last thing connected up. So, what do we want to do in order to test this? I think we need to do a quick wire count. So each of these should have 2 mechanisms. One of which is the one that's built into the trap, and one of which is the connecting one. So N2 has 2, N3 has 2, N4 has 2, N5 has 2, S1 has 2 mechanisms, S2 has 2 mechanisms, S3 has 2 mechanisms, S4 has 2 mechanisms, S5 has 2 mechanisms. Each of the filling doors should have 2 mechanisms. N1 has 2 mechanisms. N2 has 2 mechanisms. N3 has 2 mechanisms. Oops. N4, 2 mechanisms. N5, 2 mechanisms. S1, 2 mechanisms. S2, 2 mechanisms. S3, 2 mechanisms. S4, 2 mechanisms. S5, 2 mechanisms. Each gear should have 3 mechanisms. I could check like the linked buildings, but that feels like cheating. Wire counts are the way the like standard way to do this. Right, so, and I suppose we could also check the track circuits. Each one of these should have 3 mechanisms in total. That's all looking good too. Right, okay. So then what do we want to do? We want to probably set all of the doors to closed. And then recharge the bus bar. Let's just wait for all those levers to be operated. Which is probably going to be one person per lever because they can't do the organised thing of one person comes out and operates all the levers in succession. Justin asks, what happens if someone demolishes any of those outdoor levers? Will it be a pain to reinstate? That's a good question. Yes, it would be. Well, it'd be a moderate pain to reinstate because we would probably end up having to do that shuffle with putting minecarts on sensors to open the doors. So that might be a good reason to put a wall around all of these things in order to make them harder to get at. But like, no one's turned up with a building destroyer yet. And they always turn up from the other side of the map, from the southeast corner of the map anyway. I don't think any goblins have got this far except for thieves. Anyway, that's all the doors closed. So now let's pull the bus bar drain lever to seal off the bus bar drain. And I suppose also pull the bus bar charge lever. They'll probably happen in the right order. We're bringing up some additional gems from somewhere deep below the surface, which is nice. Right, bus bar drain closed. Bus bar charging. Bus bar charged. Explosion. Please pull the bus bar charge lever again quite urgently. It turns out that water can be siphoned in interesting ways, and it's all siphoning up into the middle of the desert. Pull that lever right now, please. Main bus be underwater, yes. Right. Bus bar charge turned off while we put a floor hatch over this staircase. And let's just lock the other one so that no one accidentally opens it. I mean, it's not as dangerous as opening the door that lets the sea in, to be fair. What are you doing? Oh, right, you're cleaning up because we've just hurled a load of dirty water all over the place. Right, meanwhile, the bus bar is still charged, it's just not being refilled, so we can try operating some levers and seeing what happens. So at the moment, none of the signals are active. But if, for instance, we were to pull N1 fill, then that should activate N1 signal, which should cause that roller to start running. While we wait for that, here comes the thing, right. And there we are, N1 roller is running, which means it's pushing any minecart that's on it, were on it, back northwards onto that square. Obviously we should generally pull levers twice in succession because there's not much point in leaving that fill permanently open. Right, meanwhile, we now have a floor hatch covering up that hole that let the water in. So let's pull the bus bar charge lever again. Right, so that's that fill closed. So then if we pull N1 empty, that should stop this gear assembly. And again, you don't pull these levers once, you pull all of them twice. Right, recharging the bus bar. Observe how the bus bar is full and there is not water spewing out all over the floor outside. Excellent. Now someone pulls N1 empty twice in succession. And that roller stops. Excellent. Right, okay. We have demonstrated minimally okay, they haven't pulled it the second time yet. That the signals work properly. So what we actually want to do now is to mark, is to get this kind of really correct. We don't really need to get it really correct, do we? I think we need to fill the swimming pool with water. So let's pull the fill lever, which is somewhere under these cats. Because in particular, a lot of this stuff is going to depend on whether it works or not, is going to depend on the depth of the water. So because minecarts are slowed down by being in water. So now we're going to spend a little while refilling this. Let's forbid all of the hatch covers on the top for safety. No trying to path through these hatch covers. There is an argument that I'm locking fire exits here, but like we only do it a little bit. And like we're not planning to put so much water in there that people can't actually swim around. And then let's actually assign a couple of minecarts to the necessary routes. So we'll add a new stop to Dwarf Washer. Let's rename that actually. Name this route Dwarf Washer North, which should have a stop there, which we'll deal with in a moment because it ends up in the wrong place on the list and it's just going to be confusing if I try to do anything about that. And similarly, Dwarf Washer S should have a stop there. Right, so initially we will turn off all the conditions and just assign a minecart to it to get a minecart into the right place. Similarly, that one, disable all the conditions, but assign a minecart. So the Dwarf Washer is slowly filling up. I mean, Justin says, looking at least when you're locking the fire exits, the water you're flooding the place with should be a reasonable fire retardant. We haven't actually had any fires. It's quite hard to start fires in Dwarf Fortress if you don't have either magma or a dragon. Probably we need another place to fill this from, don't we? It does take a while. No, Ben, you don't need any more complexity in this system. It does fill fairly quickly. So we need it to be filled to at least depth 4. Because that's the point at which dwarfs start swimming. Ideally, we probably want it filled rather higher. Yes, Judson points out the friendly sea can provide rapid filling. Yes, it can. But we don't actually want it that full. Then we'd have to pump the water out again. As it is, we're pumping it in from the sea, which is much safer. Also, we're getting 19 frames per second. That's a good deal better than we were earlier. Sure, we were at about 14 last session. Despite the fact that we've got a load of fluid dynamics going on now. Probably because I'm not actually asking anyone to do anything. So, yes, we want a depth of at least 4, though things will probably work better with more, because that will slow the minecarts down more. There may be limits to how far we can fill this quickly, even insofar as it's quick at all. And yeah, we can't fill something from the sea at this level because this is too far above sea level. As in or rather not far enough below sea level. It was when we opened something from this Z level that we had serious trouble. We never did get round to building a wall in front of that door, did we? Let's build that. Right. Arrange to actually wall off the forbidden door. Oh, we can't. That's annoying. We can't see the depth of water in the flip-flops because they appear as just double tilde in, or approximately equal, when the water's over a pressure plate. I mean, we can see it by mousing over it, but we can't immediately glance at it and see what state it's in. I wonder if the Dwarf Puting article has some good things on how to build displays or articles. So I'm fairly sure there are like screenshots with useful displays on. So that's not deep enough yet. I'd like it to be like averaging 5 depth. probably. Maybe 6. Right. Come on. I want to demonstrate that this doesn't work. But I want to demonstrate how it doesn't work and like test that it really doesn't work. Right, we are not going to allow a dwarf to trundle around this track on the first run. We are going to send the minecarts unoccupied. Well, obviously we'll test it with... Pinkney says, "Coo, are we finally done with lethal testing?" Oh no, just we'll start with non-lethal testing. I mean, the average depth is about right now. We should probably turn the pumps off in a moment, but let's say Dwarf Washer 1, add a condition that is push off. Oh, which way does it go? It goes south, doesn't it? South immediately. Let's just check that. Dwarf Washer 1, from there you obviously want to go south, yes. Right. Now we get to work out what's going on. The minecart has set off. It has tripped N1 detect. That has opened the door saying to N1 state, so N1 is now occupied. That in turn should fairly soon deactivate that signal. The minecart has stopped. What? Oh, the water's too deep. Curses. Stop the pumps. If you hit 7 depth of water, minecarts stop. And of course, some of the room had 7 depth of water. So, first test failed. It's going to be a particular pain because we have to get this minecart out somehow. Right, let's wait for the water levels to settle a bit, and then we'll try the south one and see if we can do better. Right, good features. We do have a correct detection that there is a minecart in section N1. Oh yes, and of course that signal being active means those rollers are active, means again, section N1 is occupied, no more minecarts can enter section N1. Even if we schedule another minecart to be placed on this track stop, it will never enter section N1. So we're now just waiting for there not to be any 7 deep squares in this area. Yes, level 7 water makes the system quite safe, except that it drowns everyone. I am now wondering if you could build signals that work by temporarily increasing the water level to 7. But the thing is, that would drown everyone. It's even worse than starving dwarves to death. Right, there are now no squares that are at depth 7. And I'm pretty sure the cellular automaton that does the hydrodynamics won't create new squares at depth 7 when there aren't any already. So let's now set Dwarf Washer South operating. So there we want to push off north always. So let's see if this works any better. Right, that minecart, what? Has just got diverted off its route and has ended up running on the wrong tracks. I think that there's still too much flow in the water. But let's see what happened to the detection systems. So, what we can demonstrate is that the short block section doesn't work properly. Does, as expected, not work properly, in that we have detected the minecart entering S1, but it's still apparently in S1. We've detected it entering S2, which it did, but it then derailed in S2. Now, we can fix this at least. It is physically not in S1 or S2, so we can find the S1 and S2 empty levers. Oops. Pull each of S1 and S2 empty twice, and thus mark those two segments as empty. Meanwhile, we can schedule a different minecart onto Dwarf Washer South. Because obviously that one's not going to be retrieved anytime soon. So actually what I kind of want to do is to suspend the task for emptying S1 for now. And just check that this signal, which is now at red because we think S1 is occupied, will correctly prevent the minecart departing. Of course, it's a blimmin' long way now to get a minecart into the starting point. We should move the minecart stockpile. It's in the wrong place now. The correct place for a minecart stockpile is near the entrance to the minecart area. Leave the thing running, Harris. Types, minecarts, made of any material and of any quality. Right, that will get the minecarts put in a place that's more useful for the new purposes. Justin says, can you repeatedly Uris cradle minecarts so they back up a square at a time until one is on a signal roller and get it moving that way? No, because they'd have to go up a ramp to do that, and I think they would roll... Oh, they might actually go up to the ramp, roll back down the ramp, and thus get going. That might work. We could experiment, but let's do the easier experiments first. Okay, someone seems to have successfully pulled S1 empty anyway. With the consequence that yes, I think I got that signal that track segment got cleared too early. Right, I think the water depth is now stable. So once someone's sorted out getting minecarts to the right place, we'll have another go. So we've demonstrated that the short block problem is real. Actually, we could try Jacob's suggestion, couldn't we? Let's mark N1 as empty as well. No, let's not do that right now. Let's put a minecart on Dwarf Washer North. Good, we get little notes telling us that the minecarts we're interested in are no longer accessible. And then we'll just see if Dwarf Washer North currently doesn't accept minecarts. Right, there is a minecart at Dwarf Washer South. And there is presumably a task scheduled to have it depart shortly. Certainly you can see no reason why it shouldn't depart. If, like, anyone can be bothered coming and giving it a shove. Oh, come on. Ah, there they go. Right. We can see the train detection operating here. Doors are definitely staying open too long. What? Why is there a dwarf down here? What are you playing at? I suppose you know how to swim, so maybe you think that's a perfectly sensible route. Right. And now, I think that was someone just pushing that minecart briefly. And it did no good at all because it moved onto that square and immediately moved back again. Let's just check that. Yes, so you can see this minecart keeps getting pushed north, but because the signalling system says it can't go anywhere, it immediately comes back to the south. So, which track segments are showing as occupied now? S1, S2, S3, S4, S5. Right, all of them. The entire system, all of I mean, we could see that where we appeared to have lots of doors open simultaneously. So it looks like the whole system has the problem that the flip-flops don't flip fast enough. I think for the most part we can probably fix that by draining some of the water off. By slowing down the rollers. So I think that what we should do is A, go to bed, and B, next time drain all the water out and set the rollers to much lower speeds. Actually what we'll do next time is we'll measure, possibly I'll do some spreadsheet work and work out what the lowest safe speed for the rollers is. Because that should make most of these sections work, and I don't want to have to build minecart memory for the whole thing. So yes, our signalling system has failed safe in that it is accidentally detecting trains when they aren't there. The manual overrides work properly, but the train detection is a bit flaky. But we think we know how to solve that. So we'll see you again on Friday, I expect, when hopefully we'll get train detection working properly. So until then, good night.